goals is OMB final format language, that goals for us is equivalent to specific aims, which is the NIH vernacular. So under B1, you're asked to enter information in a text box. Note that there's a counter here that counts down as you enter your data. So the limit to this text box is 8,000 characters, which is approximately 3 pages. That's the data dictionary uniform standard for the RPPR. And so we have adopted that to be consistent with other agencies. However, in most cases, NIH would rather not have 3 pages of major goals. So we have an NIH recommended page length here that's up to 1 page. So I'm going to move on to B1A. Have the major goals changed since the initial competing award or previous report? The first year I can check yes, or I can check no. But in the next year of the RPPR, after I've submitted one RPPR, the next year this box under B1 is going to pre-populate from what I entered the previous year. And then if I click yes, have the major goals changed, I will get another text box that gives me the opportunity to enter my revised goals. Be aware as you enter information into text boxes that the system does not support Greek letters, mathematical equations, images, and so-called rich text, including bold, italic, underlining, superscript, etc. You may enter or copy and paste such characters into a data field or text box, but when you submit the RPPR, the system generates a PDF of the report, and the characters will not appear correctly. So it's important that you be cautious about the use of such characters in text boxes, and also that you review the completed RPPR PDF prior to submission. As you'll see, there are opportunities for PDF attachments, and those attachments may include any characters, rich text, or images. So you also can cut and paste information into a text box, and that works fine. Again, there's the caution about using rich text format in that cut and paste, so you need to check and make sure you haven't done that. But also the system will truncate without warning at 8,000 characters. So again, another reason to review the RPPR prior to submission. Question B2 asks, what was accomplished under these goals? Here we have the opportunity to upload an attachment. So I'm going to do that. This works like the 424 does. Okay, so I've uploaded my accomplishments. I can view that attachment if I like. There it is. We've completed aim 1. We'll continue to work on aims 2 and 3. I can delete that attachment and add a different one. B3 provides the opportunity to report on competitive revisions and administrative supplements that are associated with the award and for which reporting is required. In this instance, there's a yes-no question. If I click yes, then the grayed out boxes below are now live so that I can enter information. So you would need, if you click yes, then you need to enter either the revision or supplement number, identifier, or the title. But both are not required, one or the other. Then you need to describe the specific aims for the revision or supplement, the accomplishments. Note that the character limit here is only 700 characters, or a quarter of a page, so we're not looking for long explanations. And then the data goes into a table format. Click Add New, and it populates the table. I can edit it, I can delete it and start over, or I can add another one by going back here and entering another revision or supplement, which I'm not going to do. B4 and B5 provide the opportunity to say nothing to report. So B4, what opportunities for training and professional development has the project provided? Question from the OMB final format, and there is some instruction here that is worth reading about what we're looking for, but the NIH specific instruction is very important. For T, F, K, R25, R13, D43, etc. awards designed to provide training, a response is required. So you would provide that response by adding an attachment. B5, how have the results been disseminated to communities of interest? Again, NIH is telling you reporting the routine dissemination of information, websites, press releases, etc. is not required. For awards not designed to disseminate information, the grantee should select nothing to report. And I'm actually going to go back up here and select nothing to report so I don't get an error message. The B6 question, what do you plan to do during the next reporting period to accomplish the goals, is a mandatory question. You're required to enter a response in the B6 text box. Now I'm going to click Save and navigate to the next tab, which is C, Products, where you report your publications.
Note that for every question in the RPPR, some kind of response is required. In many instances, that response may be as simple as selecting the Nothing to Report checkbox. In the absence of selecting Nothing to Report, the system will either require an attachment or text entry, depending on what the question is.
Okay, so we're now in C, which is products, and C has C1 is where we report our publications. Are there publications or manuscripts accepted for publication during the reporting period resulting directly from this award? Because we don't have fake live data here, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slide presentation to show you what the publication section looks like. This makes it a little easier to see the different options that come up and what the public access compliance status is. So when you click yes, there's an interface between the RPPR and my bibliography, your account in my NCBI, where PIs maintain their bibliographic information. The first three different tables can possibly show up, but at least the first one will show up. All publications associated with this project in my NCBI. So this table shows publications where the grantee has made a grant paper association in my NCBI. Note that the associate with this RPPR box is already checked. The second table, publications not associated with this project in my NCBI, shows all of those publications that the individual also has in their MyNCBI account, but that they have not already associated with this project in MyNCBI. So here you have the opportunity to associate a publication with this RPPR. The third table is entitled Publications Previously Reported for this Project. So this will show publications where you have already made that grant paper association through an RPPR and it has been finalized in MyNCBI. Note that all three of these tables provide the public access compliance status. There are 4 different categories, and the status is either complete, that means the publication is in compliance, compliance has been achieved, it's been submitted to PubMed Central as required. Not applicable means that the publication does not fall under the public access policy. For example, in this case, you get some further information why it doesn't fall under the policy. It's because it was not peer reviewed. In progress means that the individual has initiated the process to submit the publication to PubMed Central but has not completed that process. For the purposes of NIH, in progress means that you are in compliance because you have initiated the process. And non-compliant means that you should have submitted the publication to PubMed Central, but you have not. Upon submission of the RPPR to the agency, the Grant Paper Association and MyNCBI becomes finalized. So this is a live data feed coming into the RPPR from MyNCBI and going back from the publication section of the RPPR to MyNCBI. The data in these tables are dynamic until the point in time that the grantee submits the RPPR to the agency. I'm going to repeat that sentence because it's very important. The data in these tables are dynamic until the point in time that the grantee submits the RPPR to the agency. Therefore, any change occurring in PubMed, PubMed Central, the PI's My Bibliography account, or in the compliance status of a publication will refresh upon saving the products section or opening the RPPR in another session. This is another reason to check the RPPR prior to submitting the progress report to NIH. If you have a non-compliant publication, for example, there's one here, you will still be allowed to submit your progress report. However, you will receive a warning when you check for errors. That's okay. You can still submit with a warning, and the public access warning is the only warning in the RPPR module. It does not block submission the way an error does. Upon submission of an RPPR with a non-compliant publication, the system will generate an automatic e-notification indicating that a non-compliant publication was submitted in the RPPR, and that e-notification will ask you to address the non-compliance. You can use MyNCBI to manage and monitor compliance with the public access policy throughout the year, and that's what we encourage grantees to do. It makes it much easier to complete your RPPR if you don't have a compliance issue at the time you're trying to submit your RPPR. While I'm here, I want to point out that we have little question marks in little blue circles, and if you click one of those, they're sprinkled throughout the RPPR. It brings you to a help file, which provides further explanation, sometimes definitions. And so we strategically place those to provide information for you and make it easy to find out additional information. C2 is websites or other internet sites. Again, we have the nothing to report option, or you can enter information. Pay attention to the information by the logo. For awards not designed to create or maintain websites, select nothing to report. Description is only required for awards designed to create or maintain one or more websites. C3, technologies or techniques, is similar. You can click nothing to report, or you can identify technologies here. C4 is inventions, patent applications, and/or licenses. These are the same two questions that are in the current progress report. They may have been clarified slightly, but it's two simple yes/no questions. Have inventions, patents, etc. Resulted from this award during this reporting period? Yes or no. If yes, has it been reported? C5 addresses other products and also includes C5B resource sharing. So other products, we have examples here of other products that we would like you to report here, and you do that through an attachment. I'll select nothing to report. And resource sharing is where you would report on the status of any formal resource sharing plan you have. It might be a term of award. You might have a genome-wide association study that you need to report on. So this is where we want you to report on resource sharing. And again, there's the a help file here if you want additional information on what we mean by resource sharing.
I'm going to start with D1, and the D section is participants. D1 asks what individuals have worked on the project. The text you will see directly following that question is text coming to us directly from the OMB final format. You'll then see the HHS logo and the title instructions. All of the instructions following that should be familiar to you. They are instructions that we employ now in the eSNAP, so there aren't changes there. We have added a feature where you will be able to use an individual's ERA Commons ID to populate a person's profile. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit so that you can see that we have a list of participants. Where possible, we are definitely trying to leverage any information that we have. So if you have already submitted an eSNAP and we have this information, or you have submitted an RPPR previously, we're going to capture that information and pre-populate where we can. Under role here, you'll see PDPI is already completed. That is completed by the systems because we have that information in there. And I'm going to go in here now and as if I'm going to add an individual, so I will just add myself here. Please note that in all of the fields that are required, there's a red asterisk marking them as a required field. I said that we're definitely going to try to pre-populate the information where we can. There will be a few items that we will be unable to pre-populate, and that's either because they're new questions, we haven't asked them before, or it's information that needs to be completed annually. For example, the senior key personnel. That is actually senior key personnel as defined by your organization.
So that question was in our previous all personnel reports. We've removed it a couple of years ago. It caused a lot of angst, both here at NIH and for staff. So we've added it back in by popular demand.
I'm going to select a project role here. One of the biggest changes with the RPPR is in the person months and how those are reported. Person months must be rounded. This is coming to us from the language in the OMB final format for the RPPR. This is the new Fed-wide standard, again, as defined by the RPPR, and allows for reasonable variance, and we do not require the same level of granularity down to the tenths of person months that you are used to reporting in the eSNAP now. This means that person months will be reported in whole numbers from 1 to 12. In rare instances where the PDPI has person months of 0.4 or less, you would round down to 0. And we've gotten a lot of questions on this as we've gone out to present this. This is information that we cover in that, that question mark help file that Carol demonstrated to you earlier. So we do have some examples in there that your PDPIs, I'm sure, will find useful, and also for administrative staff. Note that we do not anticipate that this will occur frequently, but that the system will accommodate your ability to report 0. By NIH definition, effort for the PDPI must be greater than 0, but you'll be tracking that effort separately as required by the OMB circular. This is just really ballpark figures for reporting purposes.
This change to rounding of the person month does not impact instructions for completing applications. In an application, you can still use a decimal. In fact, you'll probably need to use a decimal when you indicate person months, but for the purposes of the RPPR, we are required to round per the OMB final format.
So you'll note there's another question with an asterisk that asks for the individual's primary, if the individual's primary affiliation is with a foreign organization. This is one of 3 new questions in the NIH RPPR which are designed to enhance our data on foreign collaborations. So if the individual's primary affiliation is with a foreign organization, you would indicate so here. You would then enter the name of their organization and select the country. I'm going to hit the Add New button, and you can see that I have been added to the list of participants. D2, level of effort, you will recognize as one of the SNAP questions. We have actually reworded it to include a reduction below the level of effort required on the NOA in those cases where minimum level of effort is required by the terms of the NOA. These are individuals that NIH specifically names on the notice of award, so either the PDPI or individuals named in the terms of award.
Note that this is the only question in the RPPR that is appropriate for requesting prior approval. The IC will review the request and respond as it would any other prior approval request. For all other instances where you're requesting prior approval, for example, change in scope or carryover, you would need to submit a separate request to the IC.
So I'm going to skip down to D2C, changes and other support. So this is also one of the SNAP questions, but will now apply broadly for all mechanisms when we implement the RPPR for all mechanisms. And it applies to senior key, again, as defined by your institution. For any individuals for whom there has been a change in other support since previously reported, you would complete the other support and attach it here. If there are multiple individuals, you will consolidate that other support and upload it as one document, just like you do with the just-in-time. You will want to include the grant in the other support that you're preparing so that the NIH staff can calculate that individual's total effort. So under item E, impact, you'll see E1, not applicable. I'm actually going to cover what that means and why it appears like that later. So in this section, I'm only going to cover question E4. What dollar amount of the award's budget is being spent in a foreign country? This is the second question geared towards enhancing our information on foreign collaborations. The language comes to us from the OMB final format. However, you will note again that we have behind the HHS logo, we have provided NIH instructions. And this is just to give you a little bit more guidance. So if you're a domestic grantee, you would provide the dollar amount obligated to first-tier subawards to foreign entities for the reporting period. If you are a foreign awardee, you would provide that same information, the dollar amount obligated to first-tier subawards outside of your country, unless that country is the U.S. So to report this, if you have no funds being spent in foreign countries, you would select nothing to report. But for the purposes of the demonstration, let's say that we have one subaward for $15,000 to Belize, for example. You would enter that information, click Add New, and it will add to the table. However, if you had two subawards to the same foreign country, so let's say that I have two $15,000 subawards to Canada, I would enter the aggregate funds, so $30,000, and then I would select the appropriate country and click Add New. So again, these dollars are by country, not by individual foreign component. I'm going to navigate to section F. I just want to highlight that again, we have included NIH specific information and guidance for F2, actual or anticipated challenges or delays. Here I want to highlight that we are requesting only significant challenges. So those challenges that are really impeding the research, for example, a delay in the accrual of patients or a delay in hiring personnel. The next sections here will look familiar to you. We already asked you questions about human subjects, invertebrate animals, and select agents and whether or not there's been a change. We've now added biohazards to this list, and again, coming to us from the RPPR. Here you would indicate if there's no change, you would just hit the no change checkbox. However, if there was a change, you would detail that change. You're going to consult the RPPR instruction guide, because it's going to give you very detailed instructions about what needs to be included in your description of that change, and then you would add that as an attachment. So I'm going to add an attachment here and keep going and select no change for the rest of them. That brings us to section G, or special reporting requirements. Question G1, special notice of award terms and funding opportunity reporting requirements is actually the only question in this section that's coming to us from the RPPR final format. All of the remainder of the questions in this section are NIH specific. This one is where you would address any, if you had terms of award that required any additional reporting requirements, you would address those here. This is in fact the only question in the RPPR where you could attach multiple attachments. So because we do recognize that you might have some programs might have extensive additional reporting requirements. So that's where you would attach them here.
And that notice of award is actually, in each RPPR, it's a live link to the current notice of award. So if you don't know whether you have special reporting requirements specified in the award terms and conditions, you can click your notice of award and it'll be right there for you to view.
Item G4C is information on the collection of clinical trials data. We have actually reduced the number of fields, and you are only asked to enter the NCT number if you have an applicable clinical trial. Note that this should be entered. It does give you an example for how this should be entered, and the system will validate. And the system is validating not the NCT number itself to see if it's a valid NCT number, but rather it is validating the format of the NCT number. So we know that we'll get close on that one. For question G6, human embryonic stem cells, HESC, it works much the same way as the NCT information does. If you have that, you need to identify the line. Again, the system will validate on the format of the number, but will not validate on the number itself. If you had a change in HESCs, you would enter that information here in the text box. For G8, performance sites, we are pre-populating this data. It works the same as eSNAP does, and you will get an error if data is incomplete. Note that the system does require you to enter a congressional district. For most of these, you can see that there's a congressional district entered, but if you had not had that completed, it will give you an error when you try to submit. At least one site must be designated as primary, and the system will not let you delete the primary site unless you have designated another site as